to spend time with us today. Such an important topic, and I'm really eager to learn and to hear what your questions are as well for the panelists. So before we get started, of course, a couple announcements. Again, thank you for joining First Thursday. This is with Sustainable Tulsa. We meet the first Thursday of every month, and we used to do that in person, but now we're online. And we appreciate you joining us and hope you're staying safe and healthy. And we look forward to seeing you in person when that time comes. Our team is working hard to keep you connected online with us through our First Thursdays, our B2B Case for Sustainability series, scorecard work days, and our Oklahoma Green Living page. And we're planning some exciting 2021, some outdoor socially distanced events as well. So stay tuned for those. We really want to get to see you again soon. But I want to thank our sponsors, American Waste Control, Cavanta, the Met, One Oak, Save Our Streams, Spirit Air Systems, TCC McKeon Center for Creativity, PSO, and PSO Wind Choice for their sponsor First Thursday program. That's how we're able to continue to bring these programs to you. So thank you so much to them. Please give them a round of applause for their support. Also want to thank my team, my board members this year. They've been amazing to help us navigate this unprecedented time in so many ways. But I wanted to acknowledge those that have joined us today: Connor Carroll, Rick Katarski, Aaron Larder, Mike Lemus, Matt Newman, Carrie Rowland, Mike Teague, and James Williams. So thank them. If you know them, send them a note in the chat, and as well as our sponsors, thank them for their leadership this year. Really appreciate the support that they have offered Sustainable Tulsa. And of course, I want to thank my team, Sarah Hicks, Jill Maud, and Megan Hurley. I do want to announce sadly and excitedly for Sarah that this is her last First Thursday with us. She has been an amazing team member, and we are sad to see her go, but excited for her next big adventure. And so stick around at the end and wish her well. We'll keep the Zoom open so you can say hello and goodbye. And anyway, Sarah, we love you, and we are so excited for your next adventure. All that also being said, that position is open, and those we're still accepting applications until October 4th. So visit our website for that information, but do stick around and say a few words to Sarah before you leave, or send her a little note in the chat. Okay, also wanted to say that we have this is exciting to have such an incredible group of folks joining us today. And I want to say we have people joining us from all over Oklahoma. We also have people joining us as far as Quebec and Australia today. So thank you for joining us on this important conversation and topic. And we're so thrilled that you have come to want to learn from our panelists and on this particular topic of tribal impact on environmental issues, and of course environmental justice concerns that we all need to continue to address and think about. More information, I want to say, Sustainable Tulsa is, we want to continue to make a positive impact here in Oklahoma. And one of the best ways that you can do that, that's easy, is support our Oklahoma Green Living page. It's only $25, and you can be a supporter of that. Not only does that financially help us to provide our programs, but it's also a way to tell Oklahomans that you want to see more of this type of information and action toward living sustainably. So I think Megan will send there in the chat how you can do that, but we do hope that you can become an Oklahoma Green Living page supporter today, and she'll send you information on where you can do that and the page so you can see the information that are there. Our next big event will be, we'll have a First Thursday, November, beginning of November, and we'll be hearing from Brad Carl with the Nature Conservancy, and he'll be talking about some of the research that his team has been putting together on talks around climate issues. And so I'm really looking forward to that. Please join us for that. More information to come shortly. And then we'll have our last B2B for the year, our B2B Case for Sustainability series, where we'll be honoring our Bellman winners. And that will be November 12th at 8 o'clock. And these are all, of course, still virtually. So stay tuned, visit our website, join our email invites, and we want you to continue to engage with us and tell us how we can best serve you as well. So before we kick off the program, I'm going to hand over to Megan Hurley. She's helping some of our sponsors and guests make a few announcements before we get started. Thank you. Megan, you're muted.
So sorry. Carrie, hi. Thank you guys.
Hey.
Just a quick update over at PSO, and thank you for your sponsorship.
Yeah, do you have the slide? Can you advance it? I can't.
You can't see it?
No, it's.
Nobody can see it.
I'm not sure about that. The slide deck didn't advance when Corey was there. We go. Yay.
Can you see it now? Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry. I don't know what's happening. Computers.
Well, we missed seeing Sarah's beautiful picture. So.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining Sustainable Tulsa this afternoon. Just really quick update from Public Service Company of Oklahoma. I am in the middle of doing a benchmarking pilot, and I have a few more spots left. If anyone is interested in participating, please get in contact with me. The benefit of this pilot is you will get access to interval data, monthly billing data, and also your Energy Star score, which is a really great thing to have. If you're not familiar with Energy Star, it's a free service provided by the Environmental Protection Agency. They score buildings based on their energy intensity from 0 to 100. And they compare other like buildings in your region and also normalize the data for weather. So if you join my pilot, you'll get to engage with a very exciting online platform for a 12-month period. You will receive monthly emails from my team on energy efficiency tips. And this will be very valuable for PSO because we can learn from your experience to help us determine if we would like to make this available to more of our customers. So if you are interested, probably if you don't have my email or phone number, you can get it from Corey and just let me know. And so like I said, I just have a couple spots left. Let me know if anyone is interested. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Corey. All right, Carrie.
There we go.
Okay, next up, everybody see the American Waste Control slide. This is Jessica with American Waste, has a brief update for you guys.
Hello. Thank you guys for the opportunity to just share about American Waste Control. So we are a locally family-owned waste and recycling in Tulsa, and we do single stream recycling for residential. We process all of that at our MRF facility, which helps to bring recycling to both Tulsa as well as lots of small communities around like Jinx, Glenpool, Bixby, Broken Arrow. And we are currently working on bringing it to even more areas. We recently added some routes that go as far out as Mounds. So we are currently just expanding our recycling for residential. We also have our waste to energy landfill, which converts all of the non-recyclable waste into electricity energy. And then we also have wood recycling, which allows people to recycle their wood, and it gets turned into mulch out at EcoWood. So those are some of the things we offer. If you have any questions, Amanda's contact information is down there at the bottom, and I'll also put my contact in the chat. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jessica. Actually, I hear your guys outside. I had to make sure my recycling was out today. So thank you. All right, up next we have the Met. Allie, are you on? Can you give us a brief?
I am. Yes. Hi.
Hi.
So we've got some good events coming up. I don't know if you have the slides for, we've got 2 tire and e-waste collection events coming up. One is on, yep, I do see them. October 3rd at the Destiny Life Church, and that'll be tires and e-waste. And then we also have one October 10th at the Tulsa Zoo. So we're pretty excited about those events. And then later in the month on October 24th, we have a drug take back event at our central location. And then the whole month of November is the Great Pumpkin Rescue, where you can drop off your pumpkins and we work with Full Sun to get them composted.
Awesome. And we have the Great Pumpkin Rescue. There we go. Perfect. Okay, and then we have Save Our Streams. Justin is not able to join us today, but if you would like more information about City of Tulsa's program, Save Our Streams, you can go to cityoftulsa.org/SOS for more information. It's a fantastic program, and we miss seeing Justin with at his booth every month. So. And then with TCC, this is from their sustainability team. I just wanted to give an update on what sustainability programs they have over at TCC. If you would like to learn more, definitely check out tulsacc.edu. And now, Corey, back to you.
Great, thank you. So much good information and wonderful things happening here in the Tulsa area. And so we're so appreciative of all these different programs to help people live a more sustainable life. So thank you. It's my honor to introduce our moderator today, Traci Phillips. I've known Traci for maybe decades now, but my first memory of meeting Traci, she was just started off Natural Evolutions, and I was just so impressed with the dedication that she had to this program and the integrity of which she operates Natural Evolution. So it is truly an honor to have her here today with us and moderating today's panel. Prior to founding Natural Evolutions, I would say she said that electronics recycling company located here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with the vision to reduce the negative impact of computers and electronics on the environment. Traci spent the 8 previous years in the information technology industry, including as a supervisor of the content distribution network of Hotel Communications. Phillips holds a bachelor's degree in business from Northeastern State University and MCSE certified and is native to Tulsa. She serves as the president of Oklahoma Recycling Association for 10 years and has held positions on the American Indian Chamber of Commerce, Osage Nation Gaming Enterprise Board, the E-Waste Task Force for the state of New Mexico, the Solid Waste Advisory Council for the state of Oklahoma, the Information Technology Advisory Board for OSU Okmulgee campus, and the Watasi board. She is married, lives in Tulsa, and has a 17-year-old daughter. In her free time, she participates in her Osage and Cherokee culture, enjoys good food, travel, friends, and art. Thank you so much, Traci. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Corey. And it's my honor, certainly, to be able to moderate today's panel. It's an exciting topic and one that is near and dear to my heart. So our first speaker is James Williams. James has been with the Muscogee Creek Nation for 27 years and in the environmental office for the last 23 years. James holds several certifications from the EPA, ODEQ, U.S. Forestry Service, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. He also holds a certified environmental manager certification and certified remediation specialist certification. That's a mouthful. James serves on many boards and committees: Sustainable Tulsa, National Congress of American Indians, on the Climate Change Technical Committee, EPA Tribal Pesticides Executive Committee, Region 6, RTOC, which is the Regional Tribal Operations Committee, TECO Committee, Tribal Environmental Coalition in Oklahoma, Muscogee Creek Nation Reservation Commission, Tulsa Chamber of Commerce, Water Committee, and in his spare time serves on the Henryetta School Board. James is married to his lovely wife, Carol, and his 6 kids, 9 grandchildren, and 1 huge dog named Pearl. Welcome, James, and we're excited to see your presentation.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Traci, and I just want to thank Sustainable Tulsa for the first Thursdays. They always have a great program, and we're so glad to be a part of it. We'll just go ahead and get started. Let me set my timer so I'll just have 10 minutes because I could go for a long time. If you'll go to the second slide. Yeah, this is our Creek Nation boundaries, and we've occupy a part in north central eastern Oklahoma with 11 counties. We have 86,100 citizens, and we're under the executive branch with our principal chief, David Hill, second chief, Del Beaver, and our cabinet member is Mr. Jesse Allen, the Secretary of the Interior. Okay, next slide. The Office of Environmental Services, our mission is to provide an effective environmental management to Muscogee Creek Nation so that tribal members may live in a confident and safe and healthy environment. I love that picture right there. That's just so serene. Okay, next slide. And the indigenous people have the right to conservation and protection of their environment and productive capacity of their lands and territories and resources. And we do work with the states. However, there's been new threats to sovereignty and self-determination, and that are being proposed that will impact our water quality and our air quality. Next slide. We're real concerned about our climate change, about the impacts that are coming, it's going to increase the impacts of those threats. So we have tornadoes here, and we're not having as many wildfires, but trust me, out in California, they're having a ton of wildfires right now. So we're seeing the impacts of the climate change being more severe, just like the hurricane season. They're coming one right after another. When it rains sometimes here, it just rains like downpour. And then we all know the effects of the flooding here in Oklahoma that can come. And it's just, it's tough on the environment anymore. Next slide. Our air quality is good right now, but it's under new threats. We've steadily improved the air quality in Oklahoma, along with the rest of the country, since the Clean Air Act was passed in 1970. However, though, a recent executive order has lowered the national emission standards for hazardous air pollutants, NEPA. This executive order allows states the power to have total jurisdiction over all lands, including tribal lands, and threatens our indigenous people, our sovereign rights on air quality that we breathe in our environment. Next slide, please. We're working with the Cherokee Nation environmental program. They have a mobile air monitoring station. We have that set up now just south of Glenpool at one of our service stations there, and we're evaluating particulate and ozone, and it's equipped with the PM 2.5, PM10 monitor, and it continuously monitors ozone, and it's got some meteorological equipment, and the station provides real-time hourly averages of particulate matter and ozone for the tribal communities. That's one thing that we're trying to do, is trying to collect our data and see what's going on. We've got some MET stations we're putting up too in different locations, and that way we can see how the soil temperature changes in the different seasons and when their changes are occurring, and we just want to see what's in the air. We put it in Glenpool because we think that the ozone is migrating a little further south in Tulsa, and our main office isn't too far from there. Okay, next slide. We still do a lot of indoor air quality. We do mold sampling, asbestos sampling, lead-based paint sampling, and that's a real concern of ours. We have a lot of some low-income clients, and we try to do the best that we can for them in a timely and affordable fashion. Next slide, please. Our water quality is real big. It's higher on our radar. The recent executive order is revising the definition of waters of the U.S., waters of the United States, WOTUS rule, which will change the definition of navigable waters for future rulemaking. This will allow states to dump into our waterways and allow states the power to have total jurisdiction over all lands, including tribal lands, if not stopped. This is a problem that we see that's going to come down the road. It's already happening, and I'll talk more on that in just a few minutes. Okay, next slide. Water quality. As you can see, we have a water quality. We have 106 grams. From the EPA, and we do water. When the water comes in, the different runoff that's coming in there, and how that changes the color of the water. We got this on the drone picture, and that's our guys out there in the kayaks, and we have another one that actually takes pictures of them up top. It's pretty good. We haven't done any fish sampling yet. We do have a fish shocking machine, but that'll probably be next in the spring if we can get out there and take some fish samples, fish scale samples, and we're looking forward to that. But I know these guys like to get out of the office and get in the kayak, so that's a good thing. All right, next picture, next slide. We also do some microinvertebrate collections. This is good. This is Mr. James and Miss Chris out there in the middle of a creek there, and they're looking forward to see how good the life is in that creek or that stream. We seem to see like it's pretty good in a lot of places, but some places that we go to where we have some pesticide runoff or something, will have some negative effects on some of the life in the streams. But this one seems to be pretty healthy right here, and I know they like to get out in there and do that. Next slide, please. We also have a solid waste division that we go around and we have our own semi. We have our own roll-off boxes. We have a couple drivers here, and this is what some of their equipment that they use. We have 30 yards, 20 yards, 10 yards, and we go out and collect solid waste at different sites, our ceremonial grounds, our churches, our community centers. What we're trying to promote here is we don't want people taking it to their family landfills or anything. We'll bring you a box, you fill it up, and then we'll haul it off for you in a safe and orderly fashion. We found that solid waste is a big problem in Indian country, especially in the rural counties, because they just tend to throw stuff out, and somehow that migrates back into the waterways, and we're trying to keep it out as best we can. Next slide, please. Illegal dumping is also pretty bad, and so this is some of the sites that we're projected to clean up this year. That's what we run into. Some of them are right on the side of the road. Some of them are out by some churches. Some of them are in some ditches, and we're just trying to slow that down a little bit. I believe we have this last few years with this program, so it's working out really well. Next slide, please. This is our solid waste totals from last year. We don't have 20 in yet, but I believe it's going to surpass this. But we're approaching 500,000 pounds of waste kept out of our waterways and off our lands. That's our solid waste. You'd be surprised at the scrap metal we dig out of there, and also we do some tires too. So those guys are staying pretty busy. Next slide, please. It's our recycle center, some of their equipment, and it's always good to have these guys out collecting throughout the complex, and then they also our own complex, and we have some furniture stores that we get to collect some boxes, and different C stores that we also are able to do some collection pickup also. Next slide, please. Of course, we always have National Recycle Day and our Earth Day events. Our National Recycle Day is coming up, but ours is going to be on November the 13th, which is a Friday. And we'll have our recycle day. We usually have a shred truck there, and we collect tires. And of course, we do the electronics. And Miss Tracy's been so good to accept our electronics, and we know it's going to a good place that'll be filtered through there and recycled properly at natural evolution. Next slide, please. This is Chief Hill, Second Chief Beaver. Came out to our last Earth Day event. It was a curbside where everybody just stayed in their cars, and we were able to get their shred out of their cars and their electronics. That was a really big day. That was one of our biggest days that we had. And Chief Hill, Second Chief Dell, come out and give us some support. And we're always glad and encouraged when they come out and say, "Hey, you guys are doing a good job." So we totally, our administration's just been very supportive of us. Next slide, please. This is our plant giveaway. We've worked in conjunction with our reintegration program. They have a greenhouse, and they're Chief Hill and Second Chief again right there. And we get these plants up and going, then we give them away. We do some community gardens, and it's really good. It's good to give a little bit back. Next slide, please. And these are some of our community gardens that we have in Okmulgee and Henryetta. I have my guys, they build these raised flower beds for the elderly so they don't have to bend over so bad. And it was a big success this year. We had more tomatoes and peppers and what we could bargain with, but that's a good thing. And that's an elderly complex back there, and so the elderly can come and just work, pull weeds, pull whatever they need to eat. It's a good, sustainable effort there. And Chris Lawson and the Natural Resources Group did a good job this year. Next slide, please. We're working on some pollinator way stations. We're going to put one out by our recycle center. We have another one. We have a rain garden, and that's kind of our goal to get those up and going. And I'm in a slow hurry right now because I know my time is fleeting. In our energy efficiency, sustainability, there's some SIP panels we use. We have a big dome there, and we put some LED lights in there. If you'll see that BAF there in the middle, you know what a BAF is? It's a big-ass fan, and that's what that is right there, and it moves the air in there. We hardly ever turn the air conditioning on because those fans are so energy efficient. And there's a college in there, and they are real energy efficient. There's our recycled building that we use for recycled steel, SIP panels, and it was good stuff. Next slide, please. And I'm trying to hurry. We must stand together to make our environment and our planet better for all people. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. Need information, just get a hold of Corey. There's my number right there. There's my email there. And I want to thank Chris Lawson for helping me out with this PowerPoint. I've been pretty busy, and she put that together for me, and she done a great job. And thank you again, and thanks to my panelists. There's some great guys too, and I can't wait for their presentations. So thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Great presentation and all the work that Muscogee Creek Nation is doing. It's always great to see the full depth of the program that you're doing and the work that you and your team are doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Traci.
Absolutely. Now we'll hear from Wayne. Wayne is with the Cherokee Nation. Wayne is a state registered environmental professional with over 21 years of experience working with tribal environmental issues. He has spent the majority of this time working in the National Environmental Policy Act compliance program, where he completed environmental review records for projects involving housing and commercial development, as well as rural and sanitation expansion. Wayne holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Environmental Management and a Master's of Science degree in Industrial Operation Management from Northeastern State University. Wayne holds many certifications, including Certified Hazardous Material Manager. In 2017, Wayne, along with Endangered Species Conservation and Mitigation Program for the Protection of the American Burying Beetle, Currently, Wayne is serving as co-chair of the Environmental Protection Agency Regional Tribal Operations Committee, where he represents 66 tribal nations. Please welcome Wayne, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Tracy. Before I get started, I do want to apologize to everybody for the profanity that Mr. Williams used during his presentation. And I want to acknowledge also that Natural Evolution is a TERO certified, which is Tribal Environmental or Tribal Employment Rights Office. That means they're an Indian-owned business. And last year was our first year that we gave out our Spirit of Sustainability Award, and that went to Natural Evolution. And then plus I want to know, I just received a text from Sarah, and apparently she has decided to stay with Sustainable Tulsa. So that's excellent. I'm glad to see that. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, briefly about the Cherokee Nation. Cherokee Nation, our reservation spans 6 full counties and 8 partial counties in northeastern Oklahoma. We have over 9,600 employees and 150 satellite offices. We're one of the largest employers in northeastern Oklahoma. We're the largest tribe in the United States with a little over 383,000 tribal members and still growing. In 2019, our economic impact to the northeastern Oklahoma reached $2.2 billion. C&B, Cherokee Nation businesses, they are the profit makers for the tribe. And they have offices in all 50 states, 2 U.S. territories, and in 26 foreign countries. The Cherokee Nation businesses is a very progressive, a very diverse entity for the tribe, and we're quite proud of the work that they do. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a list of our reoccurring programs that we maintain. At times we may apply for a grant that's for a 1, 2, or 3 year period for an initiative that we're looking at. But these are the programs that we maintain every year, even though we write grants for them every year, but these are substantial programs that we do every year. The Office of Cherokee Nation Environmental Programs was established in 1990. We have a wonderful assortment of people. I'm very fortunate to work alongside these people every day. Our office, we total 26 individuals, including myself. And looking at our directors, our 5 top directors, combined, we have an experience of 119 years. Actually, I'm the low man on that totem pole. I've only been with the tribe for a little over 21 years. And I know what you're thinking, my God, he must have started when he was 12. But actually, I was 14 when I started working for the tribe. Next slide, please. And one thing I did fail to mention, I was going to mention on the previous slide, is that the work that our office is doing with the COVID, with the pandemic and addressing that. We are doing all the environmental sampling. What that consists of is if we have a tribal employee that has tested positive, we go into their workstation and we collect samples. We send it to a laboratory for analysis, and we also disinfect those areas as well. I was looking over some of the paperwork the other day, and since we started doing this in mid-June, we've collected a little over 1,600 samples. Out of those, about 3% has tested positive. One of the things, there's 2 things that we want to get out of doing the sampling. The first one is to see if our disinfectant practices are really working. And you have to have that QA, QC as a part of this program. that's the only way that you're going to be able to tell that your disinfectant, your fumigation activities are really working. So we have offices that are very high traffic areas, like our tag offices, our clinics, food distribution, registration, that we do on a rotation basis. We do those every week. And then we have those that when we're called out, where, as I explained earlier, where an employee or somebody has tested positive, we go into the workstation, we collect samples, and then we fumigate the area. So, and we do this, and I say that, my staff does that, and they do a wonderful job on top of everything else that they do in reaching the deliverables that we have in our grants. So I couldn't ask to work with a better group of people than what I have now. I'm very blessed. As I stated earlier, I've got 21 years in, and unless they run me off tomorrow, I would love to be there for as long as I can. I love my job. I love going to work every day, and I know I'm humbled by the fact that I know that that is rare in today. So moving on, let's see, let's go on to the next slide, please. And one thing I did fail to, and James talked about a little bit in his, and I think Randy may touch on it too, is the previous slide, I failed to mention that the Cherokee Nation is a lead environmental agency for ITEC, which is the Intertribal Environmental Council of Oklahoma, or scratch that, it's not of Oklahoma, it's the Intertribal Environmental Council. It's made up of Region 6 tribes, which are tribes in Louisiana, Arkansas, which has no tribes, Texas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. It's Region 6 for EPA. And we are the lead agency. We work with those tribes on their environmental issues. We work to try to strengthen those tribes as far as building what they need within an environmental program. It's very humbling at times working with some of these really, really small tribes that just doesn't have the infrastructure or manpower to address environmental issues, but yet they still have a lot of environmental issues. So that's really, really rewarding work there. If you could go back one, I'm sorry, Tracy. Did I leave a slide out? Okay, this is where we are. The National Environmental Policy Act of 1970. Okay, the rest of my presentation will center on environmental justice. For those of you that don't know, the National Environmental Policy Act of 1970 is really what launched all the environmental concerns in the United States. The cool thing about this act is that it gave the U.S., it's a procedural law. It defined how federal entities, federal agencies conduct their activities and identify what impacts those activities may have on the environment. And the other really, really cool thing about this act is that when an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement is completed, part of that is they have to have public notification. So the public actually gets to comment on those projects before they happen. There's no other federal law that I'm aware of that has those kind of stipulations. So I remember when I was in college, I had a professor one time tell me that, well, this is a touchy-feely law, but he worked in industry. And I adore this law. I think it's amazing. I think you need to look at it. I think everybody should read it and understand where it came from, how it came about, and what it does. Push forward, please. Okay. This is section 101 of NEPA. It sets forth the national policy. And forgive me, but I'm just going to read through this slide real quick and make some notations. To use all practical means and measures, including financial, technical assistance, in a manner calculated to foster and promote the general welfare. To create and maintain conditions under which man and nature can exist in protective harmony. How cool is that? That's an amazing, that's an amazing statement to have into one of our federal laws. Don't we? We should put that all in all of our defense spending. But anyway, and fulfill the social, economic, and other requirements of present and future generations of Americans. That, my friends, is what Sustainable Tulsa is all about. You have the 3 Ps. You've got the environment, you've got society, and you've got the economic factor. This was written into law in 1970. So, and you have sustainability requirements of present and future generations of Americans. So this is a landmark law. Everybody should become accustomed to it and reserve your rights underneath that law. Anytime that there is a federal nexus on a project, federal funds are being spent, then they have to comply with the procedural law of NEPA. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Tracy. Can we back up one more? There we go. I'm jumping ahead. Now, this is an executive order that President William Jefferson Clinton signed in 1994, and basically strengthening the provisions under the National Environmental Policy Act as far as dealing with minorities and low-income, impoverished areas. Identify and address the disproportionately high and adverse human health or environmental effects of their actions on minority, low-income populations to the greatest extent practical and permitted by law. Next slide, please. Okay. You can actually back up. This is the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And you can see that within that law, it states, prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in programs or activities which receive federal financial assistance. So basically that set the grounds for what we see and what was put into the National Environmental Policy Act. Because if you look at environmental justice, that's what it is. That's what it's about. It's dealing with civil rights and the civil rights of those individuals, those communities that cannot enact on them themselves. Take note of where it says receive financial assistance. One area that that we see a lot of right now, and we're seeing a lot of it right now, is not only financial assistance, but if a project has to get a federal permit, like with cell towers, then it has to comply with NEPA. And if you ever want to have a really interesting conversation about the grasp of NEPA and what it's capable of doing, I invite you to contact the State Historic Preservation Office. They deal with this quite a bit with cell towers. And so you can understand more of the fundamentalities, fundamentalities of what this act does and how it governs that process. So on the flip side, on the right side of that slide is the a report, a landmark report that came out in 1997. It was really the first study on hazardous waste and its impact on minority communities. It's not a lengthy report, and understand this came out in 1987, so it's somewhat dated, but it is very engaging and enlightening to read. Just Google that and you can bring it up. It's very short, very brief, but from an environmental standpoint, for somebody that stands on the side of environmental justice and what that all is all about, I encourage you to read this report. Next slide, please. Okay, forgive me for that. Environmental justice. This is one of the biggest issues that we have in recent time. The Dakota Access Pipeline. We've all heard about that. In this slide, if you can see the legend down there, you can see where the original path of this pipeline was going to go. And it was just going north of the city of Bismarck, which is about 70 to 73,000 people. The Army Corps of Engineers reviewed this and they said, no, we can't take that path because that path will endanger the water supply for the city of Bismarck as it flows through the Missouri River. So what they did was they kicked it over a few hundred miles to the west to where it impacted the Great Sioux Reservation in the Dakotas. It crosses the northern boundary of the Missouri River there, which would impact the tribe's waterway if there was an integrity of the pipeline was ever in jeopardy. And it also, it was also put over an area that is of cultural significance to the tribe. But unfortunately, the test on this was, like I stated earlier, you had a community of 72,000, and then you had a tribal community of about 8,200. So, but anyway, this is one of the most notable, most recent environmental justice cases that we have seen. And these northern tribal reservations are some of the poorest areas, if you Google this, in the United States. I know with the Pine Ridge, the average life expectancy on the Pine Ridge Reservation, which is just south of this, is 66 years. They have unemployment rates in the 88th percentile. About 30% of their individuals, of their tribal members, live below the poverty line. So this is a very good example of environmental justice and how it doesn't always work. Next slide, please. Okay, the Federal Register. Okay, would everybody please just stand up that knows what the Federal Register is? I'll give you a few minutes. Okay, looks like some of you do. So, moving ahead, the Federal Register is the daily newspaper of the federal government. This is where you find out about executive orders, presidential documents, rules, proposed rules, and notices, and changes to those rules. Now, recently, they've updated the website. And if you look at that appearance on the screen right now, you think that looks very attractive, very user-friendly, but it was never that way up until recently. It was very draconian. It was very antiquated. It was hard to maneuver. And it just wasn't a user-friendly site. Now, the publications still remain that way. It is not in layman's terms when you read something that has been published in the Federal Register. And why I bring this point up is because we're talking about environmental justice to low-income minority communities. And having access to something like this, yeah, you can bring it up on your smartphone, which most people use anymore. They don't use desktops, they don't use laptops, not in these communities. It's their phone. But understanding what you're reading, being able to comprehend that, I've been looking at this stuff for over 20 years, and I still get blown away sometimes by the language that is used. I have to kick it up to our Attorney General's office for that. And then also the amount of the articles that are presented on this each day is phenomenal. Now, jokingly, I asked about those that knew about the Federal Register, and really, unless you work on the government side of the environmental cause, you don't deal that much with Federal Register and these announcements and everything. So, but I think that this should be something that we note. We should note that those communities that we're concerned with, when it does come to environmental justice and trying to find out what the impact is to their community, this is where it comes from. And those people aren't looking at it. And they probably don't even know. I mean, the vast majority of people in the United States probably doesn't even know this exists. So I think that this is a real tragedy. This is something that should be talked about. This is something that all communities should have knowledge of and access, which I'm sure they do. But that's going to pretty much wrap it up for me on this. I guess we're waiting to take questions afterwards. I know that Mr. G is up next. And if you would real quick, Traci, I want to say that I've known Randy for over 21 years. He was working at the Cherokee Nation when I first started. And I have to say that in all honesty, he is a horrible golfer. So please don't let him tell you any different. No, but seriously, the job that Randy has is a really tough job. He's basically an ambassador between the federal government and the tribal nations. He does this very well. You can tell that he has a tremendous amount of integrity. He really cares about the tribal side. He does all that he can to explain those things. I just talked about the Federal Register and how that information is distributed. And Randy works very well with all 66 tribes in Region 6. There's not an individual, I can honestly say this, there's not an individual that I've came across in all these years, whether with our own tribe or other tribes, that has ever said anything negative about Randy G. I'm proud to be his friend. I'm proud to work with him in this capacity. And all of the tribes within Region 6 take note of this as well. So anyway, I just wanted to jump in there because I do have working knowledge with this gentleman and what he's going to talk about. Randy's a phenomenal guy. So anyway, Randy, did I do enough to earn that gift card you sent me?
You did, Wayne, except the golf.
All right. Cool. All right.
Traci, did you have anything to add to his bio?
Probably not. I think Wayne did a great job at introducing Randy, so I'll let Randy go ahead and speak, and we'll get to hear from Randy G. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Traci, and good afternoon again. My name is Randy G, and I just want to thank Sustainable Tulsa for allowing me to participate on this panel today. I'll go fairly quick because I want to get to the questions part. But let me just say that I'm Navajo and a citizen of the Muscogee Creek Nation, and I graduated from Northeastern State University, loved Northeastern, loved Tahlequah, worked at Cherokee Nation for 13 years. And I just want to say, I wouldn't be where I'm at in my life today without Cherokee Nation and the chance they took on me to work there, and with Wayne and all the great folks at Cherokee. And I just get to work with a lot of great tribal partners like James and folks in our region. So I'll just jump in real quick, Traci. So let me go to the next slide. I'm going to just give an overview, brief overview of our office, environmental justice, and our tribal program. Next slide. So within our Office of Communities, Tribes, and Environmental Assessment, I'm a team leader in our tribal program. We also have our U.S.-Mexico border program, our NEPA program. We handle environmental education grants out of our office. We also have our environmental justice program and tribal program, which I'm the team leader of. We work with 66 pueblos and tribal nations in Region 6, 38 in Oklahoma, 21 in New Mexico, 4 in Louisiana, and 3 in Texas. And I also serve as a tribal consultation advisor for the region. Next slide. Let me read the definition of environmental justice. Wayne touched on it, and so did James. Environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to development, implementation, enforcement, of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. Next slide. This goal will be achieved when everyone achieves and enjoys, the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards, and equal access to the decision-making process to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work. Next slide. So what guides me in my work, because I deal with the environmental justice, working with our federally recognized tribes and indigenous peoples, state recognized tribes, community stakeholders, is our EJ policy that was developed in 2014 and working with tribes. Its purpose was to clarify our work with tribal partners and indigenous peoples. And the scope is varied. We work mainly with our federally recognized tribes out of our tribal program, but there are state recognized tribes. And I think the bulk of who we work with state recognized tribes is probably in Louisiana with HOMA and some other folks that haven't received federal recognition. But we also work with community organizations, tribal members, individual Native Americans, and others living in Indian country. Next slide. Our policy focuses on 4 areas. Number 1, so probably as many of you know, like in Oklahoma, ODEQ regulates the environment. But for folks in Indian country, that's us, that's EPA. So we integrate EJ in the direct implementation of federal environmental programs out there in Indian country. The policy also focuses on working with our federally recognized tribes on environmental justice. again, working with Indigenous people on environmental justice matters, and then how we collaborate and coordinate with our federal agencies. And I'll have an example of that later on. Next slide. How does this work? So with federally recognized tribes, we want to work with them on a government-to-government basis. We also want to help them build capacity to address issues of environmental justice. Recognize that tribes, as Wayne just mentioned, Dakota Access, have interests outside of maybe their own part of Indian country, but maybe they have an interest in other regions, other areas of Indian country and outside of Indian country. And just acknowledges that we want to work with all parties in Indian country who raise environmental justice. So not just the tribal governments, but it could be with the citizens within where the reservation or land is, who have maybe not the same interest as the tribal government, and maybe even non-Indians living within those lands. We also want to work with Indigenous people. We want to be our commitment to them to be responsive, and then how we want to engage with those folks on the Indigenous people side. Next slide, Traci. Just some community involvement examples I wanted to mention as we do our work in Indian country. One initiative, I'm really proud of the region. We worked with folks out in Pueblos and tribal nations to protect Native American children from exposure to lead. We've done a lot of lead sampling out at these tribal facilities. We went to facilities where we're the regulator of the drinking water system, that is EPA. So we've done about 80 schools and just had great work with folks like Wayne and James and other folks here in Oklahoma and in Mexico. On the federal side, we work with the Department of Energy right now. They're looking to release tritium. And so we're working on the community for that, working with them to educate the community. We're also working on some legacy mining sites, Grants Mineral Belt in New Mexico, and I think folks know about Tar Creek up there in northeastern Oklahoma. And just a plug for Cherokee Nation Environmental Protection Commission, Wayne and them have a commission that meet and offer the community to see what kind of environmental impacts there are at Cherokee Nation operations, the landfill, other avenues, and we provide some funding for them to maintain and build that commission. Next slide, please. I'll just briefly touch on what I do with the Tribal Environmental Program. My main job, at least this part of the time, is getting our Indian Environmental General Assistance Program grants. Those are our grants for building tribal capacity. Today, for us, it was the start of a new fiscal year, October 1st. So we look to get those grants out the door yesterday, but we fund all 38 federally recognized tribal nations in Oklahoma with a grant. And I just want to say that we have just outstanding federal partners here in Oklahoma. You can go to Pawhuska, Call City, Anadarko, Perkins, Durant, and you will find a tribal person working at those tribal headquarters that is experienced in environmental matters. And I just want to say that they're all great folks to work with. When I worked at Cherokee Nation and ITech, I worked there with them, and we couldn't do the work that we do without a James Williams, without a Wayne Isaacs out there in the field, without Jan Heyman at Osage, with Andrew Yates. We couldn't do that work out with them, and it would be impossible for us to do it, to be quite frank. Part of the grants have an environmental outreach component, and we allow the grants also allow tribes to work with their federal agencies and state and local governments. Next slide. What I also work with is on tribal consultation, and then I work with our programs as they directly implement programs out in Indian country. As I mentioned, EPA has their own drinking water inspectors that go out to systems out there in Indian country. We inspect underground storage tanks, like at the tribal facilities at Creek Nation, Cherokee Nation, that are on Indian lands. And then we have inspectors actually in Tulsa that go out to Osage and work with the Osage folks on doing UIC inspections and work with them out there. Next slide, Traci. Here's my contact information. Again, my name is Randy G., Regional Indian Coordinator. I've been with EPA for about 13 years. My phone number, contact information. If you have a question about anything on tribal lands, tribal environmental programs, just shoot me an email, give me a call. And if I can't get the answer, there's so many great people at EPA that we can work to get that answer for you. But I'll turn it back to you, Traci.
Thank you very much, Randy. And I definitely appreciate your presentation and all the information. The work that goes on is all encompassing and hard to squeeze in just a few minutes. Real quick, I know James has to jump off. And so if anyone has any particular questions for James, he won't have time to answer them right now, but we can get them to him and get answers and send those off. So thank you very much, James, for your presentation and your work that you do at the Creek Nation, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Traci. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Do we have time for a few more questions?
I can stay on. This is Randy.
Okay. Wayne, do you have time? You're on mute. Okay. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I think we had one question for you. Do you have just a few minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. How do companies for
you cut out there, Tracy.
How would you companies?
I still can't.
Wayne,
there?
do you have both of your laptop and phone on?
No.
Okay.
No, everything was fine. It's just, and I heard her earlier just fine and everybody else, but for some reason it's cutting in and out right now.
Go ahead again, Tracy.
How would you recommend companies work together with tribes to avoid environmental justice issues?
Well, you know, the unique thing about tribes in Oklahoma is the Cherokee Nation has a reservation, so does the Creek Nation, Choctaw, and all the other tribes. But within that, as I pointed to earlier, the 14 counties in northeastern Oklahoma that we work within, whenever we do work in those communities, it benefits everybody in that community. With the infrastructure that the tribe does, with roads and water and sanitation, with the environmental work that we do, the law enforcement work. Cherokee Nation is cross-deputized in all those counties. So a lot of times when people think about Native American and Native American tribes, they think about those tribes like we see in the Southwest and in the Northeast, where they have their own reservation and they occupy all of that reservation area themselves. The tribes in Oklahoma are unique. And I can remember a couple of years ago, we worked with a county official on a project where they were extending access to a roadway and building some other access points. And they were doing that on Spring Creek, which is a high water quality stream in northeastern Oklahoma. And they asked us to assist on that. And I can remember, and I'll always remember that during that discussion, one of the county commissioners says that the Cherokee Nation is the best neighbor that we have. And that's because our work that we do, it doesn't just affect the Cherokee Nation tribal members and other Native Americans, but it affects everybody in that community. So I find that a lot of people don't really know about that. If we're talking about business and industry, we would love to partnership with business and industry on the some projects going forward. One of the things that we're really involved with and one of the things that we're pushing forward is for the EV autos. We've established a lot of charging stations for that. We're trying to convert over our fleet right now for that too as well. So if that answers a question, or if there's something else that I need to add, I'll be more than willing to.
Randy, do you have anything to add to?
Yeah, I would just, this is Randy, like Wayne said, let me just give an example. I know when the Indian Health Service and EPA get together with our tribal partners to improve drinking water and wastewater systems, because Oklahoma is so unique, they look at communities like a Dustin, Oklahoma, or a Stillwell, and look to see how many tribal folks live in those communities, and then the money that EPA and IHS would give for the tribal folks, merge it with the city so they can make improvements for the whole system. And I just think it helps local cities, local communities that are sometimes strapped on sales tax and payer fees to really spread that dollar out so folks can, IHS and EPA can contribute those funds with the Cherokee-based community and really help the whole citizenry of the local community or town in drinking water and wastewater.
And Tracy, if I may add one thing.
Yes.
I failed to mention this when I was talking about our programs, but with our clean water program, and Randy can attest to this as well, our clean water program and our clean air program that we have, we're filling data gaps for the state of Oklahoma, for the Department of Environmental Quality. They don't have monitoring equipment in those areas, and we do. So all the data that we collect, it's uploaded in real time. It goes into a national database, but it also goes into a state database, and the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality is able to utilize that data.
And if I could just add one more, I know, and Wayne can attest to this, when there's a community cleanup done with EPA funds, like at a Tahlequah or even a tribe in the southwest part, Anadarko, usually non-tribal and tribal people bring their electronics and their household hazardous waste to these events, and it's not, everybody can take part in it, and it's just not for tribal folks. And I think that's really advantageous for the communities. Again, those community collection, when tribal folks use our grants to do the cleanup of the highways and stuff, it benefits everyone. So,
absolutely. It's been my opinion that rural recycling wouldn't be going on without the tribes in Oklahoma, and been able to maintain the infrastructure if the tribal infrastructure wasn't there. But that's a separate issue topic. Just to let everybody know, we are recording this, so if anybody needs to jump off, you will be able to access this. I think we'll take, Corey, just a couple more questions, or Megan, or yes? Okay.
Yes,
okay. What can other agencies do to support environmental justice within tribal communities? So if there's particular agencies, that may not have the relationships established, how can they establish those, or what can they do to assist in working with the tribes? And either Wayne or Randy, or both.
Wayne, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, that's fine. It's just communication. It's just realizing that the tribes have the ability, the capabilities to assist in these projects. That's the tone that needs to be set. So just reaching out to the tribes in the area of impact where your projects are taking place or where they're proposed to take place would just be doing that, just reaching out. Like I said, with our tribe and a lot of the bigger tribes, we do have the resources to help on those type of projects. And with the smaller tribes that may be impacted with that, that's where ITEC steps up and assists those tribes in those things too. So I would just say to everybody out there, whether you're public or a governmental entity, just reach out to tribes. Just reach out there and build those relationships now.
Yeah, and I'll just add on, and Wayne mentioned it, he's the Cherokee Nation, and he serves as the chair of our Regional Tribal Operations Committee, and he's doing an outstanding job, especially during this COVID time, where we used to have face-to-face meetings. But I know, Wayne has really promoted other federal agencies joining our meetings, such as FEMA and HUD and other folks joining, and then really promoted our state agency partners like an NMED, New Mexico Environmental Department, or Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, to join our meetings and listen in and to engage in this discussion. So as Wayne said, I think communication is key.
Great, thank you. What are some challenges or barriers to implement environmental justice in your communities?
Randy, you want to take that first?
Yeah, and I'll be
more of that.
Yeah, I'll be frank. I mean, I still think in the agency, we're still looking to make sure that it's going across the agency. As Wayne said, it's been through here many years, but we have new folks joining. Again, it's an education, making sure everybody knows about those principles. And then again, our tribal partners too. We just have so many new tribal folks joining our work, and again, just educating folks on what that means. I will say, COVID's making it tougher. We're doing virtual meetings now, but I think COVID's just making us challenge everything, our day-to-day work out there, working with our partners, even on inspections and stuff. And I just say lastly, I think Cherokee Nation has modeled the Environmental Protection Commission, where they have meetings and they've been real transparent about what their operations are doing. I think that lends as a model for other folks. And I know other tribes are working to do that too, but I think just that transparency just kind of helps promote, community involvement in operations and stuff.
And if I just may add to that too, and I should have disclosed this or talked about it at the beginning of the presentation, but I work for the Secretary of Natural Resources. It's a cabinet level position. So as far as our environmental programs go, or any program, whether it's a local, state, or federal entity, to have someone sit at the big table with everybody else, it really works out well. We have a very strong advocate in our Secretary of Natural Resources, Chad Harsha, and the work that Chad has done. The man is phenomenal in what he's reached out to do, and he is not just because he's my boss, but he is being of causes for the tribe, not only for our tribe, but for the other tribes in the state of Oklahoma as well. So working under an individual like that you gravitate towards that motivation, and I'm fortunate to have that.
Absolutely. Let's see, we have
time for one more question. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We have a question from a OU research assistant. They're wondering if there's any work that's going on with the poultry farms in regards to environmental justice.
If I may.
Yes.
I'm sorry, this individual you introduced is a student from
OU.
OU?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I may respond with a question is, how does a team like Oklahoma lose to Kansas State?
That's not funny, Wayne.
Way. Randy, go ahead and jump on the question now. I'm still a bit taken back by that loss.
I guess I would, since I'm not really knowledgeable about the research. We have an Office of Research and Development based out of Cincinnati. So I'm not really knowledgeable about any kind of poultry farm research. But I just want to say that we have a lab here in Ada that looks at groundwater and those type of things. So maybe I can kind of go back, we take this question back and maybe reply back to Sustainable Tulsa with what I find out. I could take that as an action item.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, we have our Attorney General, our Secretary of Natural Resources have all worked on this issue in northeastern Oklahoma with the unexpected growth of poultry farms. One of the changes that this administration has done to weaken a position on issues such as this is within the National Environmental Policy Act. They, under the disguise of wanting to streamline the process of NEPA, one of the things that they've addressed was cumulative effects of projects which would fall under the growth of the poultry industry in northeastern Oklahoma. No longer, when you conduct an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement, you don't have to look at the cumulative effects of your action. So that was really disenfranchising for entities such as tribes that are trying to deal with something of unexpected growth like the poultry farms are in Oklahoma.
There's so many questions that can come from that statement. I'm not sure that we have enough time, and that's definitely an issue that we all need to be aware of as we go forward to take a look and try to communicate to people and our legislators about that. So I'll turn it back over to Corey and Megan, and I appreciate both Wayne and Randy and everyone here. So, and the opportunity to moderate this very important panel. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you so much, Traci, and thank you again to Randy and James and Wayne. So informative and so much great information. Clearly not enough time, but definitely a beginning of a conversation we hope at Sustainable Tulsa to continue. It touches on so many important issues that are important to us as well as the nation. So we appreciate all the time. And thank you all for sticking around a little bit late with us just so we could get in a couple of questions. Again, I want to thank our sponsors, American Waste Control, Covanta, the Met, One Oak, Save Our Streams, Spirit Aerosystems, and TCC Center for Creativity, PSO and PSO Wind Choice for their support. Thank you all for joining us. A survey and the recording will go out tomorrow. Please take the survey and let us know how we can do a better job at presenting and preparing these programs for you. And but several of you have asked about the recording, so it'll be there for you tomorrow. Again, just what an honor to get to be a part of this today. And Megan, thank you so much for coordinating. Do you have any quick updates? I see a wave.
Oh, sorry, I was waving at Graham. Graham came on and started waving us from his beach.
Okay.
James will be answering the same questions that Traci asked. So we'll put those in a document that we'll upload to our website that will be attached to the email that you all will get tomorrow. If you don't get the email with the recording, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, Megan, MEGHAN, at sustainabletulsainc.org. It will be available also on our sustainabletulsainc.org/first-Thursday web page. So you can always go back and see that. It'll be available tomorrow. So we'll get James's answers for that as well. Really appreciate all of you and your time today. It was great talk. We're so happy.
Yeah. And I see that Del Beaver has joined us. Thank you for joining us today. And it's an honor to have you with us today.
Yes.
Well, if you can stick around to say farewell to Sarah as well. But thank you all so much. Stay safe, stay healthy, mask up, as several have said. We can get through this together if we do it together. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day, and we hope to see you again soon.